Welcome to IH Talks. I'm Christopher Walker from IH Bielsko-Biała, and today we're talking about using readers in the classroom with my guest, Pilar Capaul. So the general idea of this then is going to be using readers, getting students to read and develop their language skills this way. Pilar, what can you tell us?
Hi, I'm Pilar from International House, Buenos Aires. And my idea is to share different ideas and different strategies that we can use whenever we want to use readers with our students. We know as teachers, we have lots of things to do, both in class and outside classroom too. And, we also want as teachers to make sure our students read extensively outside the classroom. So we provide them with different options, different books that correspond to their level that we think are going to be useful for them and interesting for them. But sometimes it's not that easy to cover all the topics that are covered in the topic and work on language. So the idea is to talk a little bit about that and all the things we can do.
So here, when you're talking about readers, you're talking about existing books that have been written for a general audience, but that use the full range of the language. And then the reader is a kind of, how would you say, like a modified version, an adapted version?
Exactly, yes. Although I do know that some teachers allow their students to read books that are not necessary or have not necessarily been abridged. For example, I know some teachers sometimes allow their students or even suggest their students to pick books such as Harry Potter, for example, if they know or they think it would be an appropriate choice for that level. So, yes.
Right. Wow. So yeah, it does sound like it's very important to encourage students to read as much as possible, like you say. It's one of the best ways of getting people to develop their language skills. But as you mentioned, we also have this problem of balancing what we want our students to do with the time they have available. So where do the readers and your ideas fit in there?
All right. So the idea is that even if we know our students are busy, they have to work, they have to study in some cases, the idea is to try to show them as teachers how useful reading extensively can be. Sometimes students believe that because they come to class and we read some texts together, that's it, and that's enough. And maybe they can watch a movie at home and that will be enough. There's so many other things they can do to work on their English. And I feel like taking the time to talk about all these advantages and also giving them some strategies too. Maybe telling them, for example, make sure that if you're reading, you don't stop because there's a new word. Maybe you don't need to know the meaning of that word. Keep reading, highlight it, and go back to it if you want to. But the idea is also to use this reading moment, this extensive reading moment for them to realize that they don't need to know every single word, the meaning of every single word. They can work out the meaning of new words and new structures with the context and with other bits of information they have. So I think that reading has to do a lot with language development, but also with helping our students improve and become more autonomous to realize that they can do lots of things, even if we're not there.
Yeah, I really like the point that you make about getting the idea of a word from context and certainly not stopping in the middle of a sentence so that you can look a word up. And I think that this is actually what most people do when they're reading in their mother tongue, isn't it? They'll see an unfamiliar word, they'll assume either it's not critical to their understanding of the story and they'll move on, and in some cases they will then go back and take a look at the word to make sure that they had the right understanding. And sometimes, of course, it turns out that they were wrong with their guess. It is quite difficult to get the meaning of a word from context if you don't know enough about the context, for example.
Yeah, that's true. One of the things they can do is if they're not sure, they can write down their ideas and then they can use a dictionary. I know it's not very common in some cases, but they can check Or they can even come to class and then ask us. We can schedule, as if it was a class activity.
Mm.
Everyone, make sure you share some new words and tell us a little bit about what was going on in the book or in the story you were reading. And they can also share, new stories. And this is also a good moment for them to summarize what they've been reading about and to realize whether they have understood the main idea or not. Maybe you should go back to the book, maybe you should check. So it's a good moment for reflection too.
So it really builds into something much more communicative than just saying, please read a book, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it has a lot to do with the goal that we set before we even start reading. I think that it's a good idea to suggest reading
Hmm.
instead of just saying, we're going to read a book. And we can ask our students, you chose this book. Maybe, sometimes we provide them with several options. They pick one, and we can ask them, what are you expecting to get from this book? Or why are you reading? Because you bought the book. Why? What is your goal? And then they can reflect on that. I think whether they want to focus on language and whether they just want to enjoy a good story. I've heard lots of people talking about Agatha Christie's book. I want to know about her stories. So, they can set a goal
Wow.
and make sure, that guides them along the process.
Wow, that's really good. So if I can summarize then, you think obviously that introducing readers into the classroom is a very big positive, has a lot of positive outcomes in terms of helping our students to become more autonomous and a bit more independent in their learning approach. But it also works very well to boost communicative activities in the classroom. As you say, when students come back with the new words they found, or even just to talk about the story as it is developing, it's not simply quiet time, go and sit and read, but rather you're doing a bit of reading so that you can do something else as well, almost in the way the flipped classroom might work, I suppose. Wow.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Pilar, for coming in today to tell us about your ideas. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And this brings to an end our IH talk for today. Thank you.
Thank you.